She fell from the sky, not metaphorically, not in a dream, but from 30,000 feet, tripped from the heavens in a storm of fire and lightning, and lived. The jungle swallowed her whole, wrapped her in its green, unfeeling arms, and yet somehow, impossibly, she walked out alive. Her name was Juliane Koepcke, and her story is not a fable, not a legend whispered by the superstitious, but a truth so unbelievable that it feels forbidden to speak aloud. It was Christmas Eve, 1971. The passengers of LANSA Flight 508 were restless, the air thick with the kind of electric dread that hides beneath forced smiles and clinking cups. The plane, a Lockheed L-188 Electra, shuddered as it rose into the boiling skies above the Peruvian rainforest. Among those on board was 17-year-old Juliane, sitting beside her mother, both excited to reach their family's remote research station deep in the Amazon. The cabin buzzed with holiday cheer, but outside, nature had already decided otherwise. The sky grew darker, bruised purple and black, as the plane sliced through the thickening storm clouds. Thunder rolled across the horizon like the growl of something ancient and alive. Lightning forked through the windows, dazzling and deadly. Passengers murmured nervous prayers. The engines coughed and strained, the metal frame rattling under invisible hands. And then it came, a blinding flash, a sound like the heavens splitting open. One moment, Juliane was clutching her mother's arm. The next, she was no longer inside the plane at all. She was falling. The world had disappeared. No ground, no sky, just a roaring void tearing past her ears. The seat beneath her, still strapped tight around her waist, spun through the air. The jungle canopy rushed upward, an ocean of green waiting to swallow her whole. Branches exploded against her body, slowing the fall, breaking bones, bruising flesh, but they also saved her life. When she hit the forest floor, silence fell, heavy and absolute. She was alive. Imagine that, waking up in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by an endless sea of trees, the air wet and choking with decay, the only sound your own heartbeat echoing in the void. Her collarbone was broken, one eye swollen shut, her body torn and bleeding. All around her were fragments of Flight 508 shredded metal, smoldering debris, and the distant cries of the dying, fading quickly into the endless hum of insects. For hours, she called out for her mother, her voice small against the immensity of the forest. But the jungle does not answer, it devours sound, light, and hope alike. When she finally stood, dizziness threatened to pull her back into the earth, but something inside her refused. She had grown up in this wilderness. She knew its dangers, its language. Somewhere in that dense green labyrinth, she remembered, was civilization. And so she walked, days bled into each other. The sun was a torch that burned rather than warmed, and the rain was relentless, soaking her wounds, feeding the leeches that clung to her skin. She followed a small stream, just as her father had once taught her rivers lead to people, he had said. But people were nowhere to be found. She drank from the water, ate what she could, and kept moving. The jungle whispered around her, every sound a threat, every shadow alive. On the fourth day, she stumbled upon the remains of passengers' faces she did not recognize, twisted by the forest's cruel embrace. And then she found them, 3 seats, still bolted together, buried nose first into the mud. In one sat her mother. Her heart froze, time itself pausing for one unbearable moment. But she could not stay. Grief would kill her faster than the forest, so she walked on. Each night she lay beneath the canopy, staring up at the tiny cracks of starlight that peeked through, as if the heavens themselves watched in pity. Her wounds festered, maggots began to crawl beneath her skin, feeding on the rot of her flesh. But even that, she endured. There was no other choice. The jungle had taken everything from her mother, her comfort, her fear, and left only instinct. By the 9th day, her strength was nearly gone. The river had widened into a brown, churning current, dragging branches and the memory of the dead along with it. She floated downstream, letting the water carry her wherever it wished. She had surrendered to fate now, her body as much a part of the jungle as the vines and trees that towered over her. And then salvation, hidden among the trees, She saw a small wooden hut, civilization, human hands. She crawled toward it, half delirious, half dead. Inside, she found a small can of gasoline and, remembering her father's lessons, poured it over her wounds to kill the infection. The pain was beyond words, but so was the relief. When the men who owned the hut returned, they found her barely conscious, a ghost that had walked out of the storm. They carried her to safety. Juliane Koepcke was the only survivor of Flight 508. Out of 92 souls, she alone lived to tell the tale. Investigators would later confirm what many refused to believe, that she had fallen more than 2 miles from the sky and survived. The wreckage of the plane was scattered across miles of jungle, as though the forest itself had swallowed it whole, leaving behind only whispers and bones, but some say the jungle never forgot her. Even now, locals speak of strange lights flickering deep within that part of the Amazon, where the trees grow too thick and the air feels too heavy. They say you can still hear the faint echo of an engine, a metallic groan that fades into the thunder. Some believe it's the spirits of those who never made it out, still searching for a way back to the light. Others whisper that Juliane was chosen, that something ancient in that storm decided her fate, sparing her for reasons that lie beyond human understanding, and perhaps they're right. Because survival like that defies logic, it bends the rules of life and death. It feels less like luck and more like a bargain. One no mortal should ever have to make, but if you've made it this far, you already know that not all stories are meant to comfort us. Some exist to remind us that the world is far stranger, darker, and more fragile than we dare to imagine. And if you crave more of these forbidden truths, real histories buried beneath the dust and the dread, then join us. Subscribe, not for entertainment, but for revelation. Each story we tell pulls another curtain aside, exposing the shadowed corners of the past that the world prefers to forget. The next secret waits just beyond the next storm, and all you have to do is follow. Juliane recovered in time, though the memories of that day never left her. She returned to the jungle years later as a biologist, drawn back to the place that had tried to claim her. They say she still walked the forest paths with quiet reverence, her eyes always scanning the canopy as though searching for the point where sky and fate collided. And maybe she wasn't looking for where she fell, but for what caught her. What saved her remains one of aviation's greatest mysteries. How can a fall from the heavens end not in death, but in life? Was it pure chance, a perfect combination of physics and fortune, or something else? Something older than luck, buried beneath the roots of the earth, watching, waiting, deciding who will return from the abyss and who will not. We tell ourselves that the laws of nature are absolute, that survival is a matter of will and science. But in the dark places of the world, there are moments when reality fractures, when the ordinary dissolves into something inexplicable. Juliane's story sits precisely on that edge, where logic ends and legend begins. And maybe that's why it lingers in our collective memory, not just as a miracle, but as a reminder. A reminder that the line between the living and the lost is thinner than we think. That sometimes the sky doesn't just take, it gives back, but only once. So now, as you sit there in the quiet, picture it, the storm, the lightning, the fall. A single human being plummeting through clouds and chaos, landing in the arms of the earth itself. Ask yourself, why her? Why did the jungle let her go? Tell me, if the sky opened again tonight, would it choose you? Leave your thoughts in the comments below.